Hello guys, and welcome to another one of my videos. Today we're going to be covering osmosis and water transport. So first off, what is osmosis? Well, osmosis is a bit like diffusion. And if you don't know what diffusion is when particles move from an area of higher concentration, so where there is more of them, to an area of lower concentration, where there's less of them. Osmosis is effectively this, except it's only with water. So water moving from where there is more water to where there is less water. Let's start off by explaining how osmosis is actually used in a plant. So, this line here is representing the wall of a root hair cell, which, if you don't know, is basically what the plant uses to get the water that it needs for its nutrients and growth, etc. So, what then happens is this wall is known as a partially permeable membrane. Now, so, let me just label that for you. It's called a partially permeable membrane. And what that effectively means is it's a wall that some molecules can pass through, because permeable means that stuff can pass through it, and because it's partially permeable, only some stuff can pass through it. So because of the water's size, that allows it to pass into through the partially permeable membrane, because it has a small size and can therefore effectively fit through these gaps. Now, what then happens is these water particles here will move across through the partially permeable membrane, because there's a lower concentration over here. As you can see, there's no particles. There will be some, so there'll be one or two dotted about. But because there's less, that means that it wants to diffuse across the partially permeable membrane. And this is known as osmosis, the water of movement from a higher of concentration to a lower concentration. And that's effectively how the plant gets its water, through the root hair cells. So, there's another thing that you need to know when it comes to water movement, and that is known as active transport. So, in some situations, there may be a case where the root side of the plant has a higher concentration of water than the other side of the plant, so in the dirt, etc. And in this situation, you would normally assume that the water particles would move across and out. However, the plant obviously doesn't want this to happen. So, it uses something known as active transport. That's a space there, by the way. I apologise for that. So, active transport. Now, what active transport is these particles here moving against the concentration gradient, as it's known. So, moving in the opposite direction to what it should. So, instead of moving to an area of lower concentration, which is what should happen in osmosis, it moves to an area of higher concentration. And in order to I'll write this down for you. So, water particles moving against, and it's called the concentration gradient. And as I explained, that's where it moves in the opposite direction to what it should. However, to achieve this, the plant needs to use up energy. So active transport requires the use of glucose storage for respiration to get energy to do this, because it can't do this without using energy. So, that's osmosis. However, there are other movements in plants that occur with water. One simple one you need to know is that in the plant there is a tube known as the xylem. Okay? There's this tube that runs through the plant known as the xylem. And it's in the top section here. So it's basically half a tube. And it's on the top. It's called the xylem. Now the xylem is what transports the water around the plant. Another important note you may want to note, not to do with water, but still to do with the plant, and it's still something you need to know, is the phylum, which is the bottom section of this tube. And the phylum effectively transports the glucose and other energy sources made by the plant, like sucrose, which is another sugar. So remember, the xylem is the top part of the tube, which transports the water, and the phylum is the bottom part of the tube, which transports the sucrose. It's usually shown in the diagram in the opposite direction. I just did this as a 2D diagram to make it simpler for you. Lastly, we're going to move on to something known as transpiration. What is transpiration, you may ask? Well, transpiration is when water moves against gravity. So obviously normally water would have to move downwards because of gravity. But with transpiration, water moves up. Now, how does the water do this, you may ask? Well, it does it using suction. So, how does this suction work with transpiration? Well, I have my very bad drawing of a flower to demonstrate. So, what happens is you'll have your water at the bottom here, building up. Okay? So this is your water. And what will happen is, because there's already water in these leaves, supplying them with water, that water will exit, because the water also leaves the plant, via the stomata, which is located in the leaf. And this water, because it exits, it creates a vacuum effectively, because it has to have something to fill that space. Now, to fill that vacuum, the water will then be sucked up. And that effectively is how water moves against gravity through the plant, allowing the plant to use the water in different areas. So, thank you for listening to my video on water transport and osmosis. I hope it's helped you. My next video I'm planning to do will probably be on the circulatory system because of high demand. I've had several people requesting me to cover the circulatory system. So I'm planning to cover that next, however I don't know that for certain. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I obviously hope it's helped you understand biology a little more. Please still comment any suggestions that you want me to cover, and I'll see what I can do. I'm also planning to cover the the kidneys soon. So I'll be working on that. Thank you very much, and goodbye.